Hey, this is Matthew, the pastor of Acts Church in East London. You're listening to The Script, the message podcast from our church. Each week we dip into the Word and see how we can live richer, fuller lives and become the people that God wants us to be. We hope this message encourages you. Be blessed. He's able to exorcise these demons, he provides some pastoral care, and then he climbs into a boat with his disciples and they sail back across the Sea of Galilee. And you'd hope that he's able to at least catch his breath a little bit during this particular crossing and at least kind of regain himself and be a little bit refreshed, because as soon as the vessel makes shore, what happens? Well, the text tells us a great crowd gathered to him. We go again. Now, from amongst this crowd, there is someone significant who comes to the fore. His name is Jairus. He is one of the leaders of the synagogue. And considering that all Jewish life really revolves around faith, the synagogue leader is a big deal. And so Jairus comes and he literally falls in the dust in front of Jesus at his feet. And he says, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay hands on her that she may be made well and live." Jesus agrees to this request and he goes with him, and this vast crowd, almost like a symbiont being, it goes with them as well. And it's at this moment that she makes her move. And I say she because we don't know her name, but we do know more about her backstory than any other unnamed woman in the Gospels. There are 2 whole verses dedicated to it. And that might not sound like a lot of real estate, but that's actually more background than we get about like 50% of the disciples. So it's not nothing. Plus, this is the Gospel of Mark, and the Gospel of Mark is the shortest Gospel. Everything is like really condensed within this Gospel. There is no time for fluff in the Gospel of Mark, but there is time for this. I'll read from chapter 5, verses 25 and 26 in your hearing, and I think it will be on the screen very shortly. It says, "Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse." This is a woman who has a significant gynecological issue. It is also a chronic issue because she has been dealing with it for 12 years. That's a long time. That's a long enough time to maybe even forget how it feels to feel well. Now the text says she had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had. This is not a picture of someone who has been cavalier about their recovery. If we're being honest, you know, sometimes you get some people who just don't take their illnesses seriously. Like maybe you know someone who's got, let's call it the sugars. Some of you know what I'm talking about when I say that. Maybe you know someone who's got the sugars, but every time you see them, it's like they're eating Krispy Kremes and you're like, should you be doing that? She doesn't sound like that person. She sounds like a person who is exploring literally every avenue available to her to get healthy. She sounds like someone who is applying an intensity to her recovery. She has been to many physicians. Not one, not some, many. She had endured much under those physicians. She has done what they have told her to do. And we can infer it's most likely difficult things because you do not have to endure easy things. She has spent all she had. Savings, gone. Pension pot, gone. Everything, gone. This is someone who has exhausted every option available to her in the material world. You cannot tell her about this doctor, about this herbalist, about this supplement, about this YouTube video, about this podcast. She's tried it. Still bleeding. The material solutions to her problems are not working. Now, most of us cannot identify with this condition, but many of us can identify with this position. We've tried all the material options and they are not working. Now, I'm sick, or my loved one is sick, and we've tried everything, every specialist, every second opinion, every treatment. I can't find my preferred work. I've studied, I've upskilled, I've applied, nothing. My relationships are in tatters. I've tried individual counseling, I've tried couples counseling, I've tried family counseling. Now I'm cancelling the counseling because it hasn't worked. Nothing. We've tried all the material things. And so maybe we can identify with her approach up to this point, but I don't know if we can identify with what she does next. From verse 27, it says, she had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, if I but touch his clothes, I will be made well. Let's be clear. In first century Palestine, women did not touch men that they were not related to, especially in public. For the most part, they would even avoid talking to men that they did not know. We're talking about a society and a culture and a place where even in the synagogue, in the place of worship, men and women were separate. She should not be touching Jesus. In reality, she should not even be in a position to think about touching Jesus, because the gynecological issue of bleeding meant that by the laws of the land, she was ceremonially unclean. And if you are ceremonially unclean, anyone that you come into contact with subsequently becomes unclean. This woman is in a crowd. And we consider her actions from a purely material perspective. It is all wrong. Violation upon violation. But I don't want to apply an earthly analysis to what is a spiritual pursuit. Because you see, the person of Jesus represents a unique collision of the material world and the spiritual world that we do not find anywhere else. He is both man and God. He is mortal and divine. His being represents a meeting point of heaven and earth that you cannot find literally anywhere else in the universe. And so as she chases down Jesus, she isn't just seeking a physical, real world encounter. She's also seeking a spiritual encounter. What we cannot miss is that her actions in the spiritual reality are mirroring her actions in the earthly reality. You see, in this reality, she has shown an unstoppable intensity to get healing. Every doctor, every treatment, every penny, unquestionable commitment to the earthly things that she hopes will unlock healing. But she is out here modeling the same intensity in her spiritual reality to get healing. I'll bump every person. I'll step on every toe. I'll ignore every stigma in order to engage the spiritual reality that Jesus represents. She is committing herself to this process in ways that you probably hadn't even thought about. Ask yourself, how did she know where Jesus was? There is no Jesus tracker app that tells you his movements. He had only just gone to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, to the Gerasenes. He was known to travel by day, by night. He was known to stay in places for extended periods of time. No one knew when he was going to be back. No one knew that he had a same-day return. It took persistence to seek him out and patience to wait for him to come back, especially when you literally have no idea what time of the day or night it will be. Ask yourself, how did she get to the front of this crowd? Without being sexist, number one, she's a woman, and number two, she has a chronic illness that literally depletes you of your life force. It took determination and perseverance. There's every likelihood that it would have even taken pain and discomfort to get into that physical position. It is an unquestionable commitment to spiritual things that she hopes will unlock healing. As in the material, so in the immaterial. As in the earthly, so in the spiritual. She is not going to invest more into earthly solutions than into spiritual solutions and still expect God to fix her problem. What I try in the worldly, I will match in the spiritual. And this is where we can often fall down. Because when we have a problem, we will show the requisite intensity in our earthly reality to find the solution, but we don't replicate that level of spiritual intensity. God has given us spiritual disciplines that will enable us to navigate our way through life. Are we truthfully engaging them with the intensity with which this woman has gone after the hem of Jesus' robe? I know a lot of us are going through situations currently, trying to find work, unhappy with work we have, dealing with sickness, loved ones dealing with sickness, struggling with finances, struggling with family relationships. I know that we all pray. But the question is, are you engaging the discipline of prayer to the fullest? Are you getting after it with the level of drive and determination that we see in this woman? Does your spiritual intensity mirror your real world intensity? These past months, we spent some time looking at prayer under the microscope. Some of you remember we looked at different postures and positions of prayer and how they have long been connected with different kinds of needs. Has this been something that we're willing to implement? The reality is kneeling for extended periods is sometimes uncomfortable. Standing for extended periods is tiring. Prostrating yourself does not always feel practical. Sitting down to pray in bed feels nice. But when I look at this woman, I see someone unwell forcing herself through a crowd that does not want to give her space. I don't think that feels comfortable. But she knows if being in this position will give me some edge, comfort can take a running jump. I will sacrifice my comfort in order to get closer. Darryl spoke to us about how there are different prayer watches, these different moments of time throughout the course of the day and night in which we can pray, and how some of those prayer watches are particularly powerful. Don't get me wrong, all prayer is powerful, but there are some times based on the rhythm of the day and the night that are particularly powerful, especially the 3 a.m. prayer watch. Because that's the time that requires the most sacrifice. Some of you might be night owls and still be up at midnight for the midnight prayer watch. Some of you are early birds and might be up at 6 a.m. for the early prayer watch. Who is just up at 3 a.m.? It takes sacrifice. But it's the kind of sacrifice that means something to God. If you're currently going through something, When is the last time that you woke up in the middle of the night specifically to pray? Are you willing to consistently wake up and pray even just for 5 minutes? The reality is, getting up in the middle of the night and pushing through tiredness is hard. It is. But when I look at this woman, I see someone standing on the seashore for an undisclosed amount of time, waiting patiently to see if Jesus does or doesn't show up. I don't think it's easy to sacrifice the natural time signature of your life, but she knows if sacrificing for this time, at this time, demonstrates my faithfulness, then easy can take a high. I will sacrifice the rhythm of my daily life in order to get closer. She did the things that on the surface looked hard. But of all of the things that she has had to endure over the last 12 years, do you think that sacrificing some time and feeling some discomfort were really the hardest things? After being healed, I genuinely think that she would look back and say, those were the easiest of things that I had to go through. Consistently committing to spiritual disciplines can feel hard in the moment, but when they usher you to where it is that you hope to be, you realize just how small an ask that they actually were. A while ago, my family realized that we were under spiritual attack. See, Friday nights, we would put the kids to bed and there would always be some drama. Either they would suddenly take ill when they hadn't shown any symptoms throughout the course of the week at all. Even on Friday in the day, they were fine. And suddenly, Friday night bedtime, they take ill. Or they would just wake up in the night, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes at different times, just like really upset, really unsettled, like different things that we were normally used to seeing. Stuff that didn't happen any other night was happening on Friday night, the night before the Holy Sabbath day, the night before I have to come and try and stand in this place and speak words of life to you. And at first we didn't really connect the dots, but then Kira realized there's a pattern here. The enemy is trying to disrupt Saturdays by disturbing Fridays. And when we saw the pattern, it was really, really distressing to me. The fact that the enemy was trying to use my kids as pawns. And I remember driving home one Sabbath. It was just me in the car. I'd gone to church by myself. And I can remember driving home and I called my sister. And I called her not just because she's my sister, but I called her because I know her to be a person of prayer. And I called her and I explained what was happening to her. And I said, sis, you have to pray for me. And I remember exactly where I was. I was on the A13 just coming onto the flyover over Ripple Road. And I remember I was talking to her while I was driving and I broke down crying. Because I was so upset and I was so angry. And my sister was praying for me. But after that, I realized what I am doing isn't enough. I need to step up. And Kira and I said, in addition to how we're praying, we have to wake up at 3 a.m. and pray. Now, we had a little bit of experience of this because when Kira was nursing Bo, she would every night be up at 3 a.m. in the morning. And she said to me one day, no, I'm using this now. It's my time to pray. I pray and I cover my family at this time. And I was really moved by that. And I said to her, you know what? I'm going to wake up and do that with you, because the reality is when your wife is nursing in the middle of the night, there is nothing you can really do to alleviate the burden. But I thought the least I can do for this phase is try in some act of solidarity to at least wake up and to do that with you. And so we'd started doing that for a short time. And so we were used to waking up to pray. And that wasn't for a specific purpose. But even so, we had seen during that small chapter the benefits in our lives. But this was going to be different because there was now a specific mission in mind. The protection and the insulation of our children. And so we started doing it with some consistency, and it took a bit of time, but now the situation has improved so much. I can't sit here and tell you it's absolutely perfect, but it's night and day compared to how it was before. And we know categorically it is the 3 a.m. prayers that made all the difference. And now, anytime we encounter some kind of situation in our lives, it's like we give each other a bit of a look because we know what we have to do. It's time to set the alarm. Let me be real with you. We're not superheroes. It's not easy waking up at 3 a.m. In my experience, even just waking up, even if it's just for 5 minutes to pray, it disrupts your entire night's sleep. Once you've done it for a few consecutive nights, in my experience, I found that there is a weariness that clings to you that's different to kind of the normal tiredness that you're used to dealing with. It's just different. This isn't the easiest thing to do, it's hard. But breakthroughs demand intensity. Significant issues require significant responses. You cannot fix cancer with paracetamol. You need a more robust response. And sometimes the treatment asks a lot of you. But often we're out here trying to fix our biggest problems with spiritual paracetamol. It's not enough. If your problem is bigger than a metaphorical headache, you are going to need something stronger. Consistent, sacrificial, sustained prayer. Fasting that pushes you out of your comfort zone. Windows of time spent alone with God, no matter the cost. When the enemy comes in like a flood, these are your literal flood defenses. There's one more lesson that this lady models for us that we mustn't miss. She is juxtaposed in this story with Jairus. Now, Jairus got to Jesus first. So he should be the priority case. But remember, Jairus is approaching Jesus on behalf of somebody else, his sick 12-year-old daughter. He is interceding for somebody who doesn't have the ability to seek Jesus' help for themselves because of sickness. But this lady is also sick. She's been sick for 12 years. So we have 12 years and sick and 12 years of sick. It's an interesting juxtaposition. And so Jairus is in this story as an intercessor. But this lady doesn't have an intercessor. She's going herself. And so Jesus is currently literally in the act of responding to the needs of someone who sent an intercessor. He has to literally go there in order to help. But this sick woman goes straight to him. Boom, she's healed. Now the little girl still got healed. Jesus got to her eventually, but the need for intercession meant that it was the longer way around. Whereas the person who could utilize her own spirituality went straight to the source and even ended up jumping the queue. God has given us the gift of intercession, and it's an incredible gift. But the intention was never for you to have to rely on intercession because you can't go yourself. You can go. When I felt the enemy breathing down my neck, and I called my sister, and I said, you need to pray for me, God showed me something. You are asking her to do for you what you have not been prepared to do for yourself. Too many times, we want to outsource our spirituality. I'm not spiritual enough, so I need to send for someone who is spiritual to help me. How do you think they became spiritual? They did the things that you have the ability to do. They prayed when they didn't feel like praying. They fasted in season and out of season. They made time to shut the world out, regardless of the cost, and to spend time with God. They were consistent when it was difficult and uncomfortable and inconvenient. But there is nothing that they did that you can't do. Let me be clear. I'm not against intercession. I'm not against intercession. I am a beneficiary of intercession. People have interceded for me and saved me countless times. Many of those times I have no awareness of. I know I am a beneficiary of intercession, but a mature Christian should not have to rely on other people's spiritual disciplines in place of their own. Do not be distracted by this woman's physical condition. She had the spiritual fortitude to be able to say, I can go myself. God has given us spiritual disciplines in order that we can maintain a baseline level of spiritual fitness, but also so that when the time calls for it, we have the familiarity and the experience to be able to double down on them and even triple down on them so that they can usher us through the most challenging times. The reality is, there are going to be times in your life when you might have to wake up at 3 a.m. to pray. That's going to be a real struggle if you're not used to waking up at 7 a.m. to pray. There are going to be times when maybe you have to fast for 2 days, 3 days, maybe more. That's going to be hard if you're not used to fasting for 12 hours. A wise man once said, in times of peace, prepare for war. In calm seas, take steps to familiarize yourself with spiritual disciplines that will strengthen you in choppy waters that are promised to come. The Moabites were coming. And it wasn't just the Moabites. They were allied with the Ammonites. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the Maonites decided that they also wanted a piece of the action. King Jehoshaphat was scared. They're coming to take my kingdom, and there are too many of them. The enemy is coming in like a flood. In 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 3, it says, Jehoshaphat was afraid. He set himself to seek the Lord and proclaimed a fast throughout all Judah. Judah assembled to seek help from the Lord. Thank you. From all the towns of Judah, they came to seek the Lord. Jehoshaphat stood in the assembly of Judah and Jerusalem in the house of the Lord before the new court and said, O Lord, God of our ancestors, are you not God in heaven? Do you not rule over all the kingdoms of the nations? In your hand are power and might, so that no one is able to withstand you. Jehoshaphat does not know what to do about this grave situation. He fasts, he prays. And he doesn't just pray, he assumes a specific posture of prayer. Standing in the assembly of the people of God to declare the power of God. He is engaging his spiritual disciplines. And then God sends him a word. Do not fear or be dismayed at this great multitude. The battle is not yours, but God's. Amen to that. But Jehoshaphat isn't finished. Then Jehoshaphat bowed down with his face to the ground, and all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell down before the Lord, worshipping the Lord. He prays, but he doesn't just pray. He assumes a posture of prayer, bowed with his face to the ground. And then in verse 20, it says, thank you. They rose early in the morning, went out into the wilderness. And as they went out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, listen to me, O Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in the Lord your God, and you will be established. Believe his prophets. He wakes early in the morning to give God praise. Early in the Bible isn't talking about 7 a.m. He goes into the wilderness, a consistent theme in the Bible as the place of personal retreat, to have an experience with God. And as he begins to praise God, the Lord sets an ambush for his enemies, and they actually begin routing one another because the battle wasn't his, it was the Lord's. Fasting, praying, postures of prayer, early prayer watches, time of retreat, it's all there. Now, don't get me wrong. Jehoshaphat had his army too. Because earthly problems still need earthly responses, but earthly disciplines must be matched with spiritual disciplines. Earthly intensity must be matched with spiritual intensity. When I look at Jehoshaphat receiving a memo that a vast army was coming against him, I see someone who didn't know what to do about his situation, but I see someone who did know what to do in his situation. In your employment issues, in your family issues, in your health issues, in your financial issues, you might not know what to do about your situation, but you do know what to do in your situation. Don't just pray. Pray with sacrifice and consistency. Don't just fast. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Even if that means only a 10% increase in fasting time. Push. Retreat. Even if it means retreating in your house. Lock yourself in the bathroom if required for 10 minutes if you have to. I'm not saying that these practices will solve your biggest problems. But I'm also not saying that they won't. It's up to you to find out. I do know that what doesn't work is trying to fix a metaphorical heart attack with spiritual paracetamol. If you went to your doctor with a collapsed lung and he said, here, take 2 aspirin, you're going to ask to speak to the manager. Don't settle for 2 spiritual aspirin when relationships are breaking down. Don't try fixing a broken career with spiritual Nurofen. Big problems demand more than basic treatment. They need prolonged, consistent, sacrificial, spiritual solutions. Sometimes the treatment is intensive. Sometimes the treatment is uncomfortable. Sometimes it might even in the moment feel painful. But one thing that it promises, it will bring you nearer and nearer to the great physician, the sympathizing Jesus. And he can fix everything. This lady has been sick for 12 years. And as soon as she reached out and touched Jesus' robe, the text says that in her body, she felt that she was healed. And immediately, Jesus spins around in the crowd and says, "Who touched me?" And the disciples are like, "The whole crowd is touching you. How can you ask who touched me?" Because to them, it all just looked the same. But to Jesus, this touch felt different. He felt the distinctiveness of someone reaching out to him with an immutable intensity. The touch of somebody who married their worldly efforts with their spiritual efforts. Everyone was trying to reach him. But this touch felt different. And in that moment, an exchange took place. She took from him healing and restoration. He took from her the issue of spilled blood and made it his. I will spill my blood at Calvary to fix everything that has caused you pain. Not just the last 12 years, everything. And that right there is the story of the gospel, where everything that should be ours, he made his. And everything that should be his, he made ours. Maybe the most enigmatic part of this story is that after she touches him, Jesus, limited by his human awareness, didn't know who it was. And this is like one of the only times in the Gospels that Jesus doesn't know something. He turns and he asks, "Who touched me?" And this poor woman, she's terrified. He says she came forward in fear and trembling. She falls on her knees and she confesses. She's afraid something bad is going to happen. But Jesus isn't angry with her. He wanted to give her something even more important than the healing. He wanted her to go away with the knowledge that I, the Son of God, the Alpha and Omega, Jesus, the Christ, I see you. You matter to me. You are not just a number in a crowd. I see you. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. When you strive, when you seek, when you sacrifice, when your spiritual efforts match your material efforts, when you go all in on your spiritual disciplines to get closer to him, Jesus sees you and he is pleased. Sometimes in this job, people want to ask me for advice when they're in certain situations. And I've always felt unqualified to give anybody advice. But I now understand my role a little bit clearer. I can't tell you what to do about your situation. I will tell you what to do in your situation. Follow the spiritual disciplines. Let your spiritual efforts match your material efforts. Be willing and prepared to metaphorically fight through the crowd. And this time, he will know who touched him. He will see you. He'll be able to say to you, "My daughter, my son, my child, your disciplines brought you close to me, and your faith has made all things well. I see you. I will help you. Go in peace."
Thanks for listening to the Script Pod from Acts Church. To learn more about Acts or what's coming up, visit weareacts.co.uk or give us a follow on Instagram at weareactschurch. Don't forget to subscribe or share this message if it's been helpful. Thanks for being with us.